God morning and welcome, Ahiah family. Reverend Mike has allowed me to fill in for him today. And I just want to say we are glad to share our virtual service with you. Sit back and rejoice in spirit as we serve you. So our musicians today are Tina Meeks, Chris Glick, and Leon Johnson. The moderators, the practitioner for today is Peter Bedard. And the moderators for social media are Facebook, Louise Mucha, Zoom, Mindy Morrison, and YouTube, Peter Bedard. So join them either at Facebook, Zoom, or YouTube. Our theme this month is Celebrating Divine Truth. And our talk today is Welcoming the Shadow.
Love the music in you, love the song you sing. Let it bring you joy, let it give you wings, let it carry you beyond what you know, beyond old ideas of how your song goes. I love the music in me, I love the song I sing. I let it bring me joy, I let it give me wings, I let it carry me beyond what I know, beyond old ideas of how my song goes. So love the music in you, love the song you sing. Let it bring you joy, let it give you wings, let it carry you beyond what you know, beyond old ideas of how your song goes, beyond old ideas of how your song goes.
Hello, Ahiah. Hi, everybody. I am so blessed and honored to be here with you guys. I am just thrilled that I get to be part of this service and I am part of this community. Thank you so much for welcoming me into your lives, into your hearts. The Ahiah family, my spiritual family is very important to me. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the shadow. You know, the shadow I've discovered has been one of my richest areas in my life to mind. I used to live in such shame and I used to live in such fear of people seeing who I really am. And to embrace all of that, the good, the bad, and the ugly has just been such an example of freedom in my life, such a deep learning for me. And I used to hide things so much. Even just today, as I was in my backyard here, I have this wonderful old chair that I'm sitting in, and the chair makes a lot of noise. And it's a beautiful chair. And yet I was worried about the noise, that it was going to bother you, or that you wouldn't be accepting of my message if you heard the chair. And I just thought, wow, what a metaphor that thinking pattern is for my life, how I wanted to hide things and not allow people to see my imperfections. And yet I love this chair because of its imperfections. I love this chair because of the history, the weathered experience that it is, the time that it has had in existence. I appreciate it even more because of those things. And I've come to look at my shadow the same way. I just want to share this chair with you a little bit. It's an antique chair that I found at my local thrift store, and it's out on my patio. And I have this wonderful table that has all these dings and this history built into it. And that history is what I love. And I look at my life and I think, you know what? I need to broadcast that more. Instead of being afraid of my shadow and not wanting people to see it, I need just to open up and just allow you to see all my dings, all my pains, all of those things, not to, I guess, support them, but to love them, not to look for attention, but to say, look, I am who I am, and this is who I am. And these are part of what makes me, me. And so there's a little, a reading that I'd like to share with you on broadcasting, on what we share with the world. And so I'm asking you to be so open and so honest as I am learning to share, to broadcast out all the parts of me, because I know that all the parts of me are held in the consciousness of the divine, and all of them are good, as Reverend Scott would say, and very good. So I'd like to read to you a little bit from page 273 in Living the Science of Mind. Okay. Let us tune our mental instruments to success and happiness, to the idea of physical wholeness, and above everything else, to the comforting thought that there is a love in the universe, which by its very presence dissolves all hate. There's a faith that neutralizes all fear. There's a confidence that brushes aside every doubt. That's huge to me, to be able to tune into that experience, to have that faith, to know that who I am is loved by the divine at all times, no matter what, no matter if I judge it as good or bad or ugly. And Ernest Holmes goes on to say this wonderful poem by Samuel Walter Foss: let the howlers howl, let the growlers growl, and the scowlers scowl, and let the rough gang go it. Far behind the night, there is plenty of light, and the world's all right, and I know it. The world is all right, and I know it. Somewhere along the line, we must find a faith greater than all our doubts and fears and uncertainties, all those things that we hide in our shadow. Somewhere along the line, we must find a love greater than all animosity, and we must find a peace beyond our confusion. Ernest Holmes knows how to say it, man. So if you'll join me in just taking a moment to find a sense of stillness, of peace, even in the noisiness of life. Breathe with me. Father, Mother, God Almighty, Pachamama, I know that we are all held in the goodness that is God. I know the things that I find a shame in, or fear or judgment, the parts I tend to hide from others, the parts that I don't even want to look at myself. I know that all those parts are held in the goodness of God as well. And as I allow those parts to be seen by me and to be witnessed by others, I open myself up to a greater healing. And I can broadcast that goodness. I can broadcast that light. I can broadcast that understanding, that acceptance and faith. I can allow it to be my strength. And where I once where I once perceived weakness, I now find strength. And the shadow gives me that strength by embracing it, by loving it, by learning from it, by hearing its call, and becoming even stronger because of it. I claim the goodness that is God in my life right now. I claim even my shadow as good and very good. And in that, I can let go. I am so grateful that I can let go of all that stuff that I was hiding, holding on to. I release it now in this moment. I give it over to God. I am so grateful. I'm so grateful for that knowing. And in this knowing, in this truth, I am filled with the divine. Thank you so much. Thank you. And I release these words knowing that they are good and very good, knowing that they are done, and affirming that for myself, for you, for every sentient being on this planet. I say, and so it is. Amen and amen. Love you, Ahiah. Bye.
Good morning, Ahiah. It's so wonderful to be here in a place that feels like home to me. At this time of the year, I always think of being back with my family and in the snow and sharing that time of love at the end of the year, wrapping it all up. So let's just do that for a moment together and enjoy being here in Ahiah, which feels a lot like home. Okay, let's go. Got Chris and Leon accompanying me today. It's wonderful. When I think of home, I think of a place where there's love overflowing. I wish I was home, I wish I was back there with the things I've been knowing. Wind that makes the tall trees bend into leaning. Suddenly the snowflakes that fall have a meaning. Sprinkling the sea makes it all clean. Maybe there's a chance for me to go back there now that I have some direction. It would sure be nice to be back home where there's love and affection. And just maybe I can convince time to slow up, giving me enough time in my life to grow up. Time be my friend. Let me start again. Suddenly my world's gone and changed its face, but I still know where I'm going. I have had my mind spun around in space, but I still feel I'm growing. Well, if you're listening, God, please don't make it hard for us to understand the things that we see. Tell me, should we run away? Should we stay? Or would it be better just to let things be? Living here in this brand new world might be a fantasy, but it's taught me to love, and it's real, real to me. And I've learned that we must look inside our hearts a world full of love like yours and mine, like
So, good morning again. My name is Marcia Bradshaw, and I'm a practitioner here at Ahiah. And I get the gift to give the power talk today. So, according to Ernest Holmes, we can sit in the shade or move into the sunshine. Sitting in the shadow, we do not really believe that there is any sunshine. But the sun would be there all the time. And all the time that we are in bondage, the real freedom exists. It is there, but we must wake up to it. We must wake up to it by welcoming the shadow. Every person has a shadow. It's a dark cloud of fear and doubt that follows us, sticks to us. We can't hide or outrun our shadow side. We take our shadow side everywhere we go. We pretend that the shadow isn't there by doing all the good work in the world that we can do. But when I think about the shadow, what it brings up to my mind is what is hidden and how I hide. As a practitioner, it is my responsibility to look at my dark side and to do the work to heal. So during this COVID pandemic, I have taken the opportunity to do my personal work. Healing. I have journaled about areas that I've refused to notice most of my life. Now that my shadow side has been exposed, I am doing my healing work. During this pandemic, one of the nation's shadows has been revealed as institutional racism. The deep divide that exists in this country has been exposed for all the world to see. My responsibility as a practitioner is to work on my personal issues. As a member of this country, I have taken on the responsibility for addressing institutional racism. And by becoming even more active, creating and facilitating classes to identify and heal institutional racism. So I was wondering why we as a nation are facing the trifecta of events, a perfect storm. Currently, we're navigating a pandemic, racial reckoning, and political turmoil. Could it be that we are being asked to heal? I choose to believe that what is hidden is being revealed or brought to the light because we don't want to address it. That's the nation's shadow. Its dark side is facing the light for healing. I believe that systemic racism is showing up along with the pandemic and political chaos during a national shutdown for our country to pay attention. We are being called out to heal. We can no longer ignore the issue of racism. Walking the road to healing racial injustice and addressing systemic racism is what looks like to me what the shadow is, the shadow of our nation. The healing of the dark side is revealed by facing the light and looking at the challenge directly. In the case of institutional racism, facing the light is the opportunity that we have as a nation to see systemic racism for what it really is. The truth of systemic racism is looking at issues of poverty, social injustice, economic injustice, food scarcity, health injustice, and so much more. To see the light or face the light in this scenario is to know divine truth, that God is abundant and all the needs of every human is being met all the time. Since we know this truth, we know that it is time to welcome the shadow so that we might heal the injustices in this nation. Carl Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." As we provide the wisdom and turn on the light, we become enlightened and this nation heals. So it is time to look at our dark side. Look at the shadow. Face it head on so that bright lights can shine and the healing process can begin. Because the injustices in this nation have been revealed. Light shining. Because the injustices in this nation that have been revealed are the shadow of the U.S. and have been uncovered once again. As it is said, darkness will continue to be revealed until it is healed. We have the opportunity once again to heal institutional racism in all the nation's systems, one person at a time. When we see it, we reveal it, and we take action. The saying goes in Science of Mind, treat and move your feet. Pray and take action. Complete a Science of Mind treatment. Know the truth about our nation and take action. As we see the challenge, we reveal the solution. Collectively, we have a choice to heal this nation. Just as I have a choice to see the light in the shadow issues, every person has a choice. They can choose the light this time, or they can choose not to look at racism and stay in the dark. Right now, we are looking at a trifecta of darkness. This time is being called the perfect storm for healing. Being aware of transformation that is waiting to occur right where we are and in this great nation. How do we walk through this perfect storm into the light and heal this country? How do I walk through my perfect storm that I am experiencing and heal by turning to the light, addressing the challenge at hand, knowing the truth that whatever I face in the light will be healed, because that is the wisdom of the ages. That is divine truth. God is the light that dissolves darkness. The time has come to continue to focus the light on systemic racism, to heal this country. We can no longer choose the shadow, because as long as we don't focus on the light, as long as we don't focus the light on institutional racism, we are choosing not to heal. We are choosing the darkness. We are choosing to live in the shadow. So we all know that we're a spiritual community that knows the power of prayer. We are called into action to treat and move our feet in the direction of creating our beloved community. Because we know that when we heal and become that thing we desire, we are demonstrating the beloved community. And we are demonstrating the beloved community for our great nation. We are small and mighty. We have a great opportunity to grow deeper in spirit and become what we believe we already are. Let's take the challenge and really create a beloved community by having the difficult conversations, asking the questions, and healing old patterns of separation. Namaste. And I love you all.
Good morning, Ahiah family. I am Reverend Karen Frost, filling in for Reverend Scott Olson today, and we are moving forward with our monthly theme of celebrating divine truth. And of all weeks to celebrate divine truth for this week, I find extremely relevant because this week's theme is about welcoming the shadow. And as we're experiencing the shadows of our lives, as we are looking at things in our country and our individual lives that are not working for us, that we have to go through a process of looking at, confronting what is in front of us so that we can heal it. And celebrating divine truth is how we do that, to recognize that regardless of what is happening in the world, regardless of what is happening in our lives, that divine truth is what gets us through it. Divine truth is what creates the opportunity for healing and for releasing of these qualities that no longer serve us. Carl Jung said, "Everyone carries a shadow. The less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is." I take that to mean that when we aren't looking at the shadows in our lives, when we are ignoring the fact that they exist, they're foreboding and looming over us. And more specifically, the experience of the fact that the United States is a white supremacist nation is something that I personally don't really feel comfortable talking about on a Sunday morning, but I recognize that now more than ever is a great time to do this. Now is the best time to have this conversation. One reason is because we're having this conversation in America, that as a Black person, I was not comfortable really speaking out about the existence of white supremacy and how it affects me personally on a day-to-day basis. I choose to focus on celebrating divine truth so that I choose not to focus on the fact that I feel oppressed in many environments that I'm in, or I feel most often I feel like I'm treated as an other. And one of the things that I genuinely appreciate about the Ahiah spiritual family is that I don't feel like an other here at all. With the marginalization or I would say the intersectionality of my identities, being a half Black, half Jewish lesbian, growing up with two different faiths, having my own opinions and ideas and interpretation on science of mind, I feel really welcome and supported and really feel like Ahiah is truly a beloved community. And the more that I get involved in this community, the more I learn about people's interest to dive in welcoming the shadow and addressing the fact that we do live in a white supremacy, and each person doing their own healing work individually to address that. So right now, the Ahiah team, which there's a leadership team of people, which is Reverend Scott, Reverend Mike, Marsha Bradshaw, and Kelly Metcalf. I don't know why I'm blanking on everyone's names, but obviously I got there. And I are involved in this team of putting together the Beloved Community event, where we have a conversation. We have these challenging conversations about race, confront them head on, so that we are more comfortable having these conversations among the congregation, so that more of us are feeling the way that I'm feeling, that we can talk about anything that we want on a Sunday in the fellowship Zoom room, that each one of us feels welcome and truly feels like a part of the beloved community. And this event tomorrow is a great way of doing that, a great way of having a conversation about race that's designed in a way for us to welcome and confront and heal our shadow. Resma Menachem, who wrote the book My Grandmother's Hands, said, "In America, nearly all of us, regardless of our background or skin color, carry trauma in our bodies around the myth of race." So for me, specifically over the course of the summer, I was really confronted with this trauma head on as the riots in Los Angeles and around the country were heating up. And I personally, at the time, was working for a production company where we talk about race literally every day. And I'm used to it. This is what I moved to LA to do, so that I can work in television and use television as a medium to inspire positive change, to inspire equality, to inspire unity. And working for Juvie Productions, I really felt like I was doing that. But what I hadn't realized up until this point of us having the conversation about race as a country is that I'd unconsciously chosen to shrink, to assimilate, to do the best that I can to agree with everyone around me instead of speaking up for my own truth. So much so that I didn't even know what my own truth was. I was so used to doing this work of making, just for lack of a better word, white people feel comfortable with my experience of my Blackness, that I did the best that I could to be approachable, to be easy to talk to be someone that everyone can talk to about race. And so what I chose to do is put my own feelings, my own beliefs, my own experiences of oppression in the back burner, in the back pocket, never looked at it, didn't acknowledge it, made no effort to heal it at all whatsoever. And the experience, the conversation that we were having about race as a country really required me to look at it. It was no longer an option for me to deny the existence of my shadow. I had to choose to welcome it in. And so one of the ways that I chose to welcome my shadow was by taking diversity and inclusion classes through the Centers for Spiritual Living centers all over the country. And because of so many people are doing, everything is virtual and online right now, I had the opportunity to do that. One of the classes that I took was called Black in New Thought. It was put on by the Johnny Coleman Theological Institute, which is out of Chicago, my hometown. And it was really a great opportunity for me to meet with practitioners and ministers from across the country. I'd never been in a virtual space of 75 people, practitioner ministers around the country that are all identify as Black. And so that experience was really healing for me, just being in the room. I can't say that I got a whole lot out of the class, but being in the room, having the conversations that I felt like had never really taken place in the Centers for Spiritual Living gave me an opportunity to welcome this shadow, to acknowledge the fact that I had never had this education before, but that I'm choosing to welcome it in and take these classes now. I took a class from the Center for Spiritual Living in Seattle that was led by Reverend Abigail Scherer, who's a good friend of mine. She leads the Next Gen Center for Spiritual Living Retreat, which is for people who are like 19 to 40-ish, or 35-ish, I think is what they say. And Reverend Abigail led this. She used the book Cultural Consciousness, I believe it's called, or Sounds. I have it behind me. I'm just going to reach and get it. because that's handy to record it in front of a bookshelf. Soundless Cries Don't Lead to Healing. Soundless Cries Don't Lead to Healing by Valencia D. Clay. And honestly, I was not a big fan of her class and reached out to her afterward and said, hey, this is how I feel. This is how I felt of being the only Black person in this room. And she listened to me and did all of the things that a good minister does of, do you have any thoughts? Do you have any suggestions? Of course, it's not your job to tell me these things, but I am open and available to them. That kind of thing, where she really welcomed and encouraged the fact that it was difficult for me to say to a friend of mine, a spiritual leader that I revere and love and trust, that this class that she was leading felt like it was not designed for my Black voice. And so I realized that I'd had an opportunity to speak up and have uncomfortable conversations with my white friends in my life. And all of them really rose to the occasion. A lot of them chose to educate themselves, reading books that I asked them to read. One of the books that I asked my friends to read was a book called The Miseducation of a Negro by Carter G. Woodson. And my mom and I will be leading a book study around this starting on January 17th. So look out for that. But this book really, what's interesting to me about it is it's written in, I believe it's in the 30s. And a lot of what the writer talks about with the African-American community at that time is exactly what the African-American community looks like in 2020. And reading something that took place so long ago and to recognize how much things have not changed over the course of this time really inspired me to, one, educate myself on how I can choose to make different decisions in my life. One of the examples that came out of the book, and something that I briefly mentioned earlier, was that it said that Black people are essentially socialized to always come in through the back door. And metaphorically, Woodson says that if there isn't a back door, that Black people will go out of their way to find one so that they can always be hidden, come in through the back, not proclaiming out and proud and coming in like we deserve to be here. And I realized that was how I'd chosen to live my life up until that point, that I've been shrinking so that I didn't make other people uncomfortable. And so confronting that within this book allowed me to choose to make more decisions of telling my truth more often, speaking up to my friends, asking my friends to read things that make them uncomfortable and have uncomfortable conversations, knowing that they get to be a better friend to me by understanding my experience as a Black person in America, and that I get to be a better friend to them by choosing to let them in to my experience, to no longer keep my white friends at a distance, but to truly acknowledge and honor that a friendship works in two ways. I have to do the work of being vulnerable, and they have to do the work of being a safe space. And I'm so grateful that over the course of the summer that my friends, that my spiritual center, that my family has been willing to do this work with me. One of the things that I did was through Spirit Uncensored at the top of the month, the top of November, we had I forget that it's December already. It's going so quickly. At the top of November, right after the election, I held an event called America, Unity, and Civility that had both the Black and the white side of my family. And this was after a 7-day silent meditation retreat that I had given myself in the backyard. And so I was feeling super raw and emotional, going through an experience of a 7-day silent practice had brought up all kinds of feelings, all kinds of clarity, all kinds of healing, all kinds of opportunities to acknowledge and welcome my shadow. And so to lead this event the very next day after my 7-day retreat had ended, I was in a very raw emotional place. And even though I got it together, the video's on YouTube, on Spirit Uncensored's YouTube page, if anybody wants to check it out. But the experience of getting, I'm 39 years old, and I have never gotten my white side and my Black side of my family together to have a conversation about race. Why would that be something that I do? Why would it be something that my family did? They're living their lives, doing their own thing. I am the one mixed race family member out of the family, and nobody had the thought to say, well, let's figure this out. Let's ensure this mixed race person in our family feels safe around her identity. So that, like, let's do everything that we can to ensure that the experience of living in a white supremacy really prevents us from thinking of things like this very often. That everyone in my family thought of me as somebody who they love. The white side of the family did not say, we didn't see you as a Black person. I saw you as my niece. I saw you as my cousin. And, you know, the Black side of my family talks about race all the time. So my whiteness was present and accounted for. In fact, I actually felt really supported by my Black family in a way that it wasn't that I was unsupported by my white family, but the silence, the fact that we never talked about race, that we never acknowledged what my racial experience looks like, to me, that silence was really deafening. And to bring my family together to have that conversation was incredibly difficult. And I know that it's not the end of our healing journey. My mom and my aunt, my mother's sister, hopped off immediately after that event ended. And it hurt me a lot to put them in that situation, to feel as if I'm asking for a conversation about unity and civility. And at the same time, what that requires, what that is asking of my Black family members to do, is to really experience their trauma, confront their trauma, and address the fact that my white family members have never felt the need to acknowledge their experience of my Blackness and my mother's Blackness. And, you know, something that I give my white family a whole lot of credit for is that they acknowledge the fact that racism was the norm. When my parents got married, the white side of my family did not attend their wedding, specifically because racism was just that strong in their family, and they were not comfortable attending a wedding. In fact, they sat Shiva for my father, as this is the Jewish side of my family. They pronounced him dead and sat Shiva and considered their relationship with him literally over. And around the time that my grandmother was starting to transition, she decided that she didn't want to leave this earth, leave this plane of action without healing this relationship with her son. And so she consciously chose to bring the family together. And that was when they started to address and confront the shadow of racism and the existence of racism within their own home, within their own family. I was 2 years old at the time. And so because of that, I didn't have any real conscious awareness of that. And in fact, the fact that I have a memory of my 2-year-old self asking why I'd never met this grandmother before. And the answer I was given, which was true, was that she lived in California for 2 years. And, you know, I'm only 2 years old. She's in town. I'm going to meet her now. And for some reason, as my 2-year-old brain, I didn't think to ask, well, what about all these other people? How come I never met any of these other people either? I think I just kind of assumed everybody was in California. And this is the reason for why I was in Chicago. This is the reason for why I'm meeting everybody now for the first time at 2 years old. And so I grew up in the shadow of the existence of how racism had such a significant impact on my own family. But my parents told me about it at like 18, because that's an inappropriate way, I think, in some ways to tell your child, hey, guess what? This is the thing from our past that's been a challenge for me, or a challenge in our family. But I wholeheartedly value and respect the fact that both sides of my family were willing to come together on the internet, on YouTube, to have a conversation about race, to acknowledge how racism has had an impact on all of them. And I feel like all of that contributes to our healing journey, that we are welcoming the shadow to allow for that healing to take place. Layla Saad in Me and White Supremacy said, "There is no clean, comfortable, or convenient way to dismantle a violent system of oppression." There is no clean and comfortable or convenient way to dismantle a violent system of oppression. There just isn't. But we are celebrating divine truth this month. This is one of the many values and qualities that Spirit has to provide for us. That regardless of the fact that it's not clean, comfortable, or convenient to do this work, Spirit is available to support us and guide us every step of the way. And one of the ways that Spirit is showing up is by inspiring the leadership team at Ahiah to put together this event of celebrating the beloved community, of honoring the beloved community, of each person doing their own individual work and coming together to be able to lead and serve other people as each one of us does our own individual work, as we do our own work of welcoming the shadow and trusting in divine truth to guide us through this healing journey. So I mentioned the people on the team, but I also mentioned that I took a Black and New Thought class, but I also took a class at Agape. I believe it was called Creating the Beloved Community, which is where we got this title for tomorrow's event at 7 p.m. in the virtual Zoom room. And Marcia Bradshaw was one of the facilitators for that class. Kelly Metcalf took the class. Reverend Mike took the class. And, all that happened was that Marcia Bradshaw sent an email out to the ministers and practitioners saying, hey, this class starts on Saturday. I think she sent the email out on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and she apologized for that. But, she invited us all to participate. And the fact that me and Reverend Mike and Kelly were ready and available and interested, and we didn't have a conversation on the side. I never said, hey, who's going to take this class with me? It was something that I knew that I needed to do for my own healing journey, and the two of them chose to do it for their own healing journey as well. And I know Reverend Scott would have done it. In fact, he said many times over that he would have loved to have taken this class, but he was teaching something else that night, so he was not able to do it. Something along those lines. I'm not going to speak for him. Just know that each spiritual leader in this movement, in our movement at the Ahiah Center for Spiritual Living specifically, is choosing to welcome the shadow, is doing our own individual work. I know that Kelly Metcalf was involved in leading the Me and White Supremacy group with Reverend Scott a few months ago, or maybe it was just a month ago. I'm not sure. I didn't take it because I do not identify as white. But what I have been taking, being somebody who identifies as Black, is I've been actively involved in the Ubuntu circles that meets every 2 weeks. We just had ours. It's every other week. And so the next Ubuntu circle for Black congregants, all are welcome to join, will be the Monday after the Beloved Community events. I can't remember what date that is. I think it's December 13th, but check your calendars. So the Ubuntu circles have been a fantastic space for me and my wife to really think about our belief systems around the Black community in America, to think about what we love about the Black community, to think about what we want to embrace more about the Black community, to be able to have a safe space to process and heal and discuss with other Black leaders within our movement and within the Ahiah community around racial division and inclusivity and exclusivity, that we have this safe space to heal. And Reverend Mike and Marcia and Annette Spence do such a wonderful job of putting this event on this morning. I generally, every other week, I generally give like the prayer at the end and say a little thing in the middle of it, but I give them all of the credit. I joined the leadership team late and was very passive, specifically because, as I said, I was doing a lot of healing work of my own and was doing the best that I can, not to take too much on, not to overwhelm myself, because part of welcoming the shadow is acknowledging the fact that because it is not clean, because it is not comfortable, because it is not convenient to dismantle a violent system of oppression, that it is physically and emotionally and spiritually exhausting. And so I really had to choose to honor myself, to honor my journey, to not take on too many experiences of leadership, not to step out into the spotlight too often, because I was processing so much of my own feelings around the existence of white supremacy, my own participation in it, my own internalized racism. Acknowledging and looking at all of those things was so challenging for me that I really had to really lean in and honor my spiritual practice. And so this is something that we say pretty much every week at Ahiah, is spiritual practice is everything. And to be honest, I did not meditate daily until I had time with this pandemic. I had like a 160-day streak going on. I did miss Thanksgiving. That was the one day of the last 160 days that I missed meditation. I did all kinds of prayer, but I did not meditate that day. And so it is what it is. I forgave myself and moved on. But spiritual practice, prayer, seeing a practitioner, there are a variety of resources available. There are books that we can read, a variety of resources available to help us welcome the shadow, to acknowledge the existence of white supremacy and truly healing it within our own country. So I'd like to invite us into an experience of prayer, of moving this energy away from the shadow and towards welcoming, towards celebrating the experience of our divine truth. And I invite you to join me in this experience of prayer by getting comfortable where you are, centering ourselves in the present in this moment, acknowledging that everything that has occurred in this country's history up until this point, that God has been present for all of it, that divine truth itself is changeless and is always unwavering, that it is always available to us, and that the light and the dark consists of God itself. There is no separation. God is all, light and dark, shadow and physical, that we are the allness of spirit itself, and that it expresses, and each person, each moment in history, each experience of life, divinity and God itself are present. And I know that each one of us is on our own perfect healing journey in relationship to who we are in white supremacy. Knowing that whether it is attending the beloved community event at 7 p.m. tomorrow, whether it is reading books like Me and White Supremacy in my grandmother's hands and attending the Ubuntu Circle, whatever healing experiences, whatever community resources, whatever books and prayers and treatments and meditations that we choose to do to heal our experience of racial division is the right and perfect choice for each one of us. And I'm so grateful to be a part of a spiritual center where this conversation is welcomed, where it is encouraged, where spiritual leaders are doing their own individual work so that they can support each community member in doing their own individual work. And I am so, so, so grateful for the shift that takes place on the planet, because each person is choosing to participate in this experience of prayer, choosing to know that whatever is theirs to do is theirs to do. Whatever way is right for them to contribute to dismantling this violent system of oppression, that each person is doing their work, however that looks, however that consists, that we are welcoming the shadow into this experience and celebrating divine truth, knowing that spirit is available and supporting us every step of our journey. So I am so grateful for the conscious commitment being made to dismantle this system of oppression, grateful for the love that is shared and leaned into to know and trust that God is supporting us in our journey every step of the way, that all of the resources, information, clarity, understanding is all available to us. We simply have to choose to be open to receive. So in this moment, I choose to be open to receive, and I acknowledge and bless each person who chooses to join me in this experience of being open to receive whatever needs to be known in healing oppression and revealing divine truth. So I am so grateful to know this, grateful to speak this, grateful to celebrate this. As I let it be so, we affirm this by saying, and so it is. Amen.
Oh, thank you, Reverend Karen. That was just wonderful. I know that we're having a few technical difficulties with Facebook, so I appreciate that people are still staying tuned. I hope that you're able to hear it, even though I think the video might be frozen. We will be having our video up on YouTube later on today. That's the regular video. So you'll be able to tune in. If you weren't quite able to hear Reverend Karen's talk, you can tune in then. So now's the time for our conscious contributions, and I'm so grateful that so many people have been redoing their pledge, taking their pledge from for 2020 and moving it into 2021. I've been talking to a lot of people on the phone, and I want to tell you that we're already at about 60% of what we had for 2020 pledged into 2021, and I've just gotten started. So I truly appreciate how strongly our congregation supports Ahiah, and thank you for that. And so I know many of you have already contributed this week virtually. If you have not contributed yet, there's 3 different ways for you to contribute to Ahiah. You can either go to our website, which is at ahiah.com/donate, and donate there, or you can go and text to give, which is text an amount to 616-225-2229. Or we always love to get checks and in the mail. And I want to say thank you to all the people who give me cards through the mail. I really do appreciate that. It touches my heart. And so if we go ahead and take our contribution and hold it to our heart and say the blessing along with me. Derek, are we showing the slide for the blessing? Thank you, Derek. So you can read along with me then. This gift I give is God in action. I send it forth with joy, confidence, and ease. I am blessed by the law of giving and receiving, as I now share my gift with life, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. And so it is. Amen and amen. And so now I want to invite Tina Meeks back on up. Come on up, Tina. And she's going to share another song with us.
Thank you. I really did get a lot out of Reverend Karen's talk, and it's awesome to be in a community of people where we can have these conversations and also remember that it's about love. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. No, not just for some, but for everyone. Lord, we don't need another mountain. There are mountains and hillsides enough to climb. There are oceans and rivers enough to cross, enough to last until the end of time. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. No, not just for some, but for everyone. Lord, we don't need another meadow. There are cornfields and wheat fields enough to grow. There are sunbeams and moonbeams enough to shine. Enough, said Lord, listen if you want to know. Oh, what the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. Oh, it's not just for some, but it's just for everyone. Come on, everybody, let me hear you at home. What the world needs now, what is it? Love, sweet love. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. What the world needs now is love. We need love, y'all. Have a wonderful week.
Oh, we we love having Tina here at Ahiah. She's here every first Sunday of the month, and I'm just so thrilled to have you back once again. I'm thrilled to have us actually in our sanctuary all together. This is and still socially distanced, but we're here today, and it's really wonderful to have this energy back here in our sanctuary. So thank you. So now is time for a few announcements. I guess I can take this off. Now it's time for a few announcements. And I want to start off by talking about what you heard a little bit from both Marcia and Reverend Karen, that we are having this tomorrow, December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day at 7 p.m. For 2 hours, we're going to have Creating the Conscious Community. And Beloved Community, sorry. We were wondering which one we were going to go with, but it's Beloved. So Creating the Beloved Community. And we're going to be inviting everyone. Everyone is invited to this. And I've been making calls and making sure that we have plenty of people there, because you can look at this process that we're doing tomorrow as kind of a kickoff to a process that we're going to be doing in January and beyond for a little while. And it's a little bit of visioning for our community, a visioning for us to understand the capital B, beloved community, that we truly, truly want to be here at Ahiah. So I'm asking you to join us tomorrow at 7 o'clock in our Zoom room. You can find it on our website. Go to ahiah.com/virtual for the Zoom link. I also want to tell you a little bit about a sing-along that we're going to be having. It'll be a Christmas Eve sing-along. It's going to be Christmas Eve, obviously, and we're going to have our own Elizabeth Hangen and our band with us, Chris and Leon and Brian, and we're just going to have a lot of fun. We're not going to be talking a lot. We're going to be singing a lot. And, what we would like you to do is just come in and just join us. 2020 has been a bit of a heavy year, and so I thought what we should do for that is just come in, community, sing some Christmas carols, listen to some Christmas music, have a little bit of fun. We'll be in our Zoom room, and more information will be there. But I would love, love, love to see you there. I mentioned in the contribution that we are doing our pledges. If you receive our newsletter, you'll have a link in the newsletter to renew your pledge. But if you're a current pledger, I'll be calling you, so expect my call, asking you to continue your pledge into next year. And if you're new to our community or you didn't pledge last year, I would love to have you do that. You can check out the newsletter. You can call me. You can email me at revscott@ahiah.com. Any way to do that, I would love to talk to you. And so now we're going to have a couple more announcements.
Next Saturday, 10 to 11 a.m. Pacific Time, Life Visioning at Ahiah. Guided meditative visioning for the highest and the best expression of your life from within you. This is an open spiritual practice group. Activate deeper love and understanding. Together we grow, and there is only one growth after all, spiritual growth. Meditative visioning next Saturday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific Time.
Good morning, Ahiah family. It's time again to support the Friends Indeed annual Angel Toy Drive. We have identified 25 children from our community, and I hope you will join me in adopting a child and giving them a Christmas gift. Our loving donations will put a smile on a child's face. Due to the pandemic, we have a way to do this with little exposure for any of us. I will be picking out gift cards for each child. Please go to the Ahiah website, use the Donate tab, and drop down to Angel Toy Drive to make your donation. Or you can always mail a check to Ahiah with Angel Toy Drive on the memo line. I will match you with a child and give you a call to let you know what gift card I purchased for them. I will need your donations by December 11th. Please feel free to contact me directly if you have questions or need assistance. Thank you in advance for your generosity. Season's greetings.
Greetings, Ahiah family. Our holiday bazaar will be virtual this year. The event will start at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Time on Sunday, December 13th, right after Sunday service in our Zoom room. Everyone is invited to participate and shop within our community. You will receive a brief introduction from the business owners, and they will provide website and contact information for purchases. If you have a business and are interested in presenting, you can register at ahiah.com/bazaar, BAZAAR, by the deadline of Tuesday, December 8th. There is no fee to sign up, but we do ask that presenters donate 20% of profits from this event to Ahiah. Join us next Sunday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific in Ahiah's virtual Zoom.